Chapter 76 Medicine. Chapter 1. There is no disease except its treatment. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, there is no disease that Allah has created except that He also has created its treatment. Chapter 2. May a man treat a woman or a woman treat a man. Narrated Rubai bint Muad bin Afra. We used to go for military expeditions along with Allah's Messenger and provide the people with water, serve them and bring the dead and the wounded back to Medina. Chapter 3. There is cure in 3 things. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, healing is in 3 things: a gulp of honey, cupping, and branding with fire, cauterizing. But I forbid my followers to use cauterization, branding with fire. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, healing is in 3 things: cupping, a gulp of honey, or cauterization, branding with fire. But I forbid my followers to use cauterization, branding with fire. Chapter 4. Treatment with honey. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to like sweet edible things and honey. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. I heard the Prophet saying, if there is any healing in your medicines, then it is in cupping, a gulp of honey, or branding with fire, cauterization. That suits the ailment, but I don't like to be cauterized, branded with fire. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. A man came to the Prophet and said, my brother has some abdominal trouble. The Prophet said to him, let him drink honey. The man came for a 2nd time, and the Prophet said to him, let him drink honey. He came for the 3rd time, and the Prophet said, let him drink honey. He returned again and said, I have done that. The Prophet then said, Allah has said the truth, but your brother's abdomen has told a lie. Let him drink honey. So he made him drink honey, and he was cured. Chapter 5. To treat with the milk of camels. Narrated Anas. Some people were sick and they said, O Allah's Messenger, give us shelter and food. So when they became healthy, they said, the weather of Medina is not suitable for us. So he sent them to Al-Hara with some she-camels of his and said, drink of their milk. But when they became healthy, they killed the shepherd of the Prophet and drove away his camels. The Prophet sent some people in their pursuit. Then he got their hands and feet cut, and their eyes were branded with heated pieces of iron. I saw one of them licking the earth with his tongue till he died. Chapter 6. To treat with the urine of camels. Narrated Anas. The climate of Medina did not suit some people, so the Prophet ordered them to follow his shepherd, his camels, and drink their milk and urine as a medicine. So they followed the shepherd, that is the camels, and drank their milk and urine till their bodies became healthy. Then they killed the shepherd and drove away the camels. When the news reached the Prophet, he sent some people in their pursuit. When they were brought, he cut their hands and feet, and their eyes were branded with heated pieces of iron. Chapter 7. To treat with black cumin, nigella seeds. Narrated Khalid bin Saad. We went out and Ghalib bin Abjar was accompanying us. He fell ill on the way, and when we arrived at Medina, he was still sick. Ibn Abi Atiq came to visit him and said to us, "Treat him with black cumin. Take 5 or 7 seeds and crush them, mix the powder with oil, and drop the resulting mixture into both nostrils. For Aisha has narrated to me that she heard the Prophet saying, 'This black cumin is healing for all diseases except Assam.'" Aisha said, "What is Assam?" He said, "Death." Narrated Abu Huraira, I heard Allah's Messenger saying, "There is healing in black cumin for all diseases except death." Chapter 8. At-Talbina prepared for the patient. Narrated Urwa, Aisha used to recommend At-Talbina for the sick and for such a person as grieved over a dead person. She used to say, "I heard Allah's Messenger saying, At-Talbina gives rest to the heart of the patient and makes it active and relieves some of his sorrow and grief." Narrated Hisham's father, Aisha used to recommend At-Talbina and used to say, "It is disliked by the patient, although it is beneficial." Chapter 9. Sa'ut. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet was cupped and he paid the wages to the one who had cupped him, and then took suit medicine sniffed by nose. Chapter 10. To sniff the Indian and sea coast kind of incense. Narrated Qais bint Misan, I heard the Prophet saying, "Treat with the Indian incense, for it has healing for 7 diseases. It is to be sniffed by one having a throat trouble, and to be put into one side of the mouth of one suffering from pleurisy. Once I went to Allah's Messenger with a son of mine who would not eat any food, and the boy passed urine on him, whereupon he asked for some water and sprinkled it over the place of urine." Chapter 11. What time one should be cupped. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet was cupped while he was fasting. Chapter 12. To be cupped while on a journey or in Iram. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet was cupped while he was in a state of Iram. Chapter 13. To be cupped as a treatment for a disease. Narrated Anas, that he was asked about the wages of the one who cups others. He said, "Allah's Messenger was cupped by Abd Taiba, to whom he gave 2 sa of food, and interceded for him with his masters, who consequently reduced what they used to charge him daily." Then the Prophet said, "The best medicines you may treat yourself with are cupping and sea incense." He added, "You should not torture your children by treating tonsillitis by pressing the tonsils or the palate with the finger, but use incense." Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that he paid Al-Mukana a visit during his illness and said, "I will not leave till he gets cupped, for I heard Allah's Messenger saying, there is healing in cupping." Chapter 14. Cupping on the head. Narrated Abdullah bin Buhayna, Allah's Messenger was cupped on the middle of his head at Lal Jamal on his way to Mecca, while he was in a state of Iram. Narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's Messenger was cupped on his head. Chapter 15. Cupping to treat unilateral or bilateral headache. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet was cupped on his head for an ailment he was suffering from while he was in a state of Iram at a water place called Lal Jamal. Ibn Abbas further said, Allah's apostle was cupped on his head for unilateral headache while he was in a state of Iram. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. I heard the Prophet saying, if there is any good in your medicines, then it is in a gulp of honey, a cupping operation, or branding, cauterization. But I do not like to be cauterized, branded. Chapter 16. To get one's head shaved because of some ailment. Narrated Ka'b bin Ujra. The Prophet came to me during the period of Al-Hudaybiyah while I was lighting fire underneath a cooking pot and lice were falling down my head. He said, do your lice hurt you? I said, yes. He said, shave your head and fast for 3 days, or feed 6 poor persons, or slaughter a sheep as a sacrifice. Chapter 17. Branding, cauterizing. Narrated Jabir. The Prophet said, if there is any healing in your medicines, then it is a cupping operation, or branding, cauterization, but I do not like to be cauterized, branded. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Allah's Messenger said, nations were displayed before me. 1 or 2 prophets will pass by along with a few followers. A prophet will pass by accompanied by nobody. Then a big crowd of people passed in front of me, and I asked, who are they? Are they my followers? It was said, no, it is Moses and his followers. It was said to me, look at the horizon. Behold, there was a multitude of people filling the horizon. Then it was said to me, look there and there above the stretching sky. Behold, there was a multitude filling the horizon. It was said to me, this is your nation, out of whom 70,000 shall enter paradise without reckoning. Then the Prophet entered his house without telling his companions who the 70,000 were. So the people started talking about the issue and said, it is we who have believed in Allah and followed his apostle. Therefore those people are either ourselves or our children who are born in the Islamic era, for we were born in a pre-Islamic period of ignorance. When the Prophet heard of that, he came out and said, those people are those who do not treat themselves with ruqyah, nor do they believe in bad or good omen from birds, etc. Nor do they get themselves branded, cauterized, but they put their trust only in their Lord. On that, Ukasha bin Musin said, am I one of them, O Allah's Messenger? The Prophet said, yes. Then another person got up and said, am I one of them? The Prophet said, Ukasha has anticipated you. Chapter 18. To treat ophthalmia with antimony or coal. Narrated Salama. The husband of a lady died and her eyes became sore, and the people mentioned her story to the Prophet. They asked him whether it was permissible for her to use coal, as her eyes were exposed to danger. He said, previously, when one of you was bereaved by a husband, she would stay in her dirty clothes in a bad, unhealthy house for 1 year, and when a dog passed by, she would throw a globe of dung. No, she should observe the prescribed period, Idda, for 4 months and 10 days. Chapter 19. Leprosy. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, "There is no adwa, no contagious disease, is conveyed without Allah's permission. Nor is there any bad omen from birds, nor is there any hama, nor is there any bad omen in the month of Safar. And one should run away from the leper as one runs away from a lion." Note, the majority of scholars interpret this to mean that these things in and of themselves do not transmit or cause harm through supernatural or hidden means, but that Allah is ultimately in control, and any fearful superstition around this is false. Chapter 20. Alman heals eye diseases. Narrated Sa'id bin Zaid. I heard a prophet saying, "Truffles are like manna, yet they grow naturally without man's care, and their water heals eye diseases." Chapter 21. Al-Ladud, the medicine which is poured or inserted into one side of a patient's mouth. Narrated Ibn Abbas and Aisha. Abu Bakr kissed the forehead of the Prophet when he was dead. Aisha added, "We put medicine in one side of his mouth, but he started waving us not to insert the medicine into his mouth. We said, he dislikes the medicine as a patient usually does. But when he came to his senses, he said, 'Did I not forbid you to put medicine by force in the side of my mouth?' We said, we thought it was just because a patient usually dislikes medicine." He said, "None of those who are in the house but will be forced to take medicine in the side of his mouth while I am watching, except Al-Abbas, for he had not witnessed your deed." Narrated Qais. I went to Allah's Messenger along with a son of mine, whose palate and tonsils I had pressed with my finger as a treatment for a throat and tonsil disease. The Prophet said, "Why do you pain your children by pressing their throats? Use Ud al-Hindi, certain Indian incense, for it cures 7 diseases, one of which is pleurisy. It is used as a snuff for treating throat and tonsil disease, and it is inserted into one side of the mouth of one suffering from pleurisy." Chapter 22. The wife of the Prophet, when the health of Allah's Messenger deteriorated and his condition became serious, he asked the permission of all his wives to allow him to be treated in my house, and they allowed him. He came out, supported by 2 men, and his legs were dragging on the ground, between Abbas and another man. The sub-narrator told Ibn Abbas, who said, "Do you know who was the other man whom Aisha did not mention?" The sub-narrator said, "No." Ibn Abbas said, it was Ali. Aisha added, "When the Prophet entered my house, and his disease became aggravated, he said, 'Pour on me 7 water skins full of water, the tying ribbons of which had not been untied, so that I may give some advice to the people.' So he made him sit in a tub belonging to Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet, and started pouring water on him from those water skins till he waved us to stop. Then he went out to the people and led them in prayer, and delivered a speech before them. Chapter 23. Al-Udra, throat or tonsil diseases. Narrated Qais, that she took to Allah's messenger one of her sons, whose palate and tonsils she had pressed because he had throat trouble. The Prophet said, "Why do you pain your children by getting the palate pressed like that? Use the Ud al-Hindi, certain Indian incense, for it cures 7 diseases, one of which is pleurisy." Chapter 24. The treatment for a person suffering from diarrhea. Narrated Abu Sa'id. A man came to the Prophet and said, "My brother has got loose motions." The Prophet said, "Let him drink honey." The man again came and said, "I made him drink honey, but that made him worse." The Prophet said, "Allah has said the truth, and the abdomen of your brother has told a lie." Hadith number 88. Chapter 25. There is no Safar disease that afflicts the abdomen. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger said, "There is no adwa, no disease is conveyed from the sick to the healthy without Allah's permission, nor Safar, nor Hama." A Bedouin stood up and said, "Then what about my camels? They are like deer on the sand, but when a mangy camel comes and mixes with them, they all get infected with mangy." The Prophet said, "Then who conveyed the mange disease to the first one?" Chapter 26. Pleurisy. Narrated Qais, that she took to Allah's messenger one of her sons, whose palate and tonsils she had pressed to treat a throat trouble. The Prophet said, "Be afraid of Allah. Why do you pain your children by having their tonsils pressed like that? Use the Ud al-Hindi, a certain Indian incense, for it cures 7 diseases, one of which is pleurisy." Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger allowed one of the Ansar families to treat persons who have taken poison and also who are suffering from ear ailment with ruqya. Anas added, "I got myself branded, cauterized for pleurisy when Allah's Messenger was still alive." Abu Talha, Anas bin al-Nadir and Said bin Thabit witnessed that, and it was Abu Talha who branded cauterized me. Chapter 27. To burn a mat to stop bleeding. Narrated Sal bin Saud as-Sa'idi. When the helmet broke on the head of the Prophet and his face became covered with blood and his incisor tooth broke, during the Battle of Uhud, Ali used to bring water in his shield while Fatima was washing the blood off his face. When Fatima saw that the bleeding increased because of the water, she took a mat of palm leaves, burnt it, and stuck the burnt ashes on the wound of Allah's apostle, whereupon the bleeding stopped. Chapter 28. Fever is from the heat of hell. Narrated Nasi. Abdullah bin Umar said, "The Prophet said, fever is from the heat of hell, so put it out, cool it with water." Nafi added, "Abdullah used to say, O Allah, relieve us from the punishment when he suffered from fever." Narrated Fatima bint al-Mundir. Whenever a lady suffering from fever was brought to Asma bint Abu Bakr, she used to invoke Allah for her and then sprinkle some water on her body at the chest and say, Allah's Messenger used to order us to abate fever with water. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet said, fever is from the heat of hell, so abate fever with water. Narrated Rafi bin Khadij. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, fever is from the heat of hell, so abate fever with water. Chapter 29. Whoever went out of a land because of its climate and water. Narrated Anas bin Malik. Some people from the tribes of Ukkel and Ureina came to Allah's Messenger and embraced Islam and said, O Allah's Messenger, we are owners of livestock and have never been farmers, and they found the climate of Medina unsuitable for them. So Allah's Messenger ordered that they be given some camels and a shepherd, and ordered them to go out with those camels and drink their milk and urine. So they set out, but when they reached a place called Al-Hara, they reverted to disbelief after their conversion to Islam. Kill the shepherd and draw away the camels. When this news reached the Prophet, he sent in their pursuit, and they were caught and brought. The Prophet ordered that their eyes be branded with heated iron bars, and their hands be cut off, and they were left at Al-Hara till they died in that state. Chapter 30. What has been mentioned about the plague. Narrated Saved. The Prophet said, if you hear of an outbreak of plague in a land, do not enter it, but if the plague breaks out in a place while you are in it, do not leave that place. Narrated Abdullah bin Abbas. Umar bin al-Khattab departed for Sham, and when he reached Sarg, the commanders of the Muslim army, Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah, and his companions met him and told him that an epidemic had broken out in Sham. Umar said, call for me the early emigrants. So Umar called them, consulted them, and informed them that an epidemic had broken out in Sham. Those people differed in their opinions. Some of them said, we have come out for a purpose, and we do not think that it is proper to give it up. While others said to Umar, you have along with you other people and their companions of Allah's Messenger, so do not advise that we take them to this epidemic. Umar said to them, leave me now. Then he said, call the Ansar for me. I called them and he consulted them, and they followed the way of the emigrants and differed as they did. He then said to them, leave me now, and added, call for me the old people of Quraysh who emigrated in the year of the conquest of Mecca. I called them, and they gave an unanimous opinion, saying, we advise that you should return with the people and do not take them to that place of epidemic. So Umar made an announcement, I will ride back to Medina in the morning, so you should do the same. Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah said to Umar, are you running away from what Allah had ordained? Umar said, would that someone else had said such a thing, O Abu Ubaidah? Yes, we are running from what Allah had ordained to what Allah has ordained. Don't you agree that if you had two camels that went down a valley, having two places, one green and the other dry, you would graze them on the green one only, if Allah had ordained that? And you would graze them on the dry one only, if Allah had ordained that. At that time, Abdurrahman bin Auf, who had been absent because of some job, came and said, I have some knowledge about this. I have heard Allah's Messenger saying, if you hear about it, an outbreak of plague in a land, do not go to it. But if plague breaks out in a country where you are staying, do not run away from it. Umar thanked Allah and returned to Medina. Narrated Abdullah bin Amir. Umar went to Sham, and when he reached Sarg, he got the news that an epidemic of plague had broken out in Sham. Abdurrahman bin Auf told him that Allah's messenger said, "If you hear that plague has broken out in a land, do not go to it. But if it breaks out in a land where you are present, do not go out escaping from it." Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's messenger said, "Neither Messiah al-Dajjal nor plague will enter Medina." Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger said, "Death from plague is martyrdom for every Muslim." Narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, "He, a Muslim who dies of an abdominal disease is a martyr, and he who dies of plague is a martyr." Chapter 31. The reward of a person who suffers from plague and remains patient. Narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, that she asked Allah's messenger about plague, and Allah's messenger informed her, saying, "Plague was a punishment which Allah used to send on whom He wished, but Allah made it a blessing for the believers. None among the believers remains patient in the land in which plague has broken out, and considers that nothing will befall him except what Allah has ordained for him, but that Allah will grant him a reward similar to that of a martyr." Chapter 32. Aruka with the Quran and the Muawwidats. Narrated Aisha, during the Prophet's fatal illness, he used to recite the Muawwidats, Surat al-Nas and Surat al-Falaq, and then blow his breath over his body when his illness was aggravated. I used to recite those two surahs and blow my breath over him and make him rub his body with his own hand for his blessings. Mamar asked Al-Suri, "How did the Prophet used to blow?" Al-Suri said, "He used to blow on his hands and then pass them over his face." Chapter 33. To do Ruqya by reciting Surat al-Fatiha. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Some of the companions of the Prophet came across a tribe amongst the tribes of the Arabs, and that tribe did not entertain them while they were in that state. The chief of that tribe was bitten by a snake or stung by a scorpion. They said to the companions of the Prophet, "Have you got any medicine with you, or anybody who can treat with Ruqya?" The Prophet's companions said, "You refuse to entertain us, so we will not treat your chief unless you pay us for it." So they agreed to pay them a flock of sheep. One of them, the Prophet's companion, started reciting Surat al-Fatiha and gathering his saliva and spitting it at the snake bite. The patient got cured, and his people presented the sheep to them, but they said, "We will not take it unless we ask the Prophet whether it is lawful." When they asked him, he smiled and said, "How do you know that Surat al-Fatiha is a Ruqya? Take it, flock of sheep, and assign a share for me." Chapter 34. Conditions for doing Ruqya with Surat al-Fatiha. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Some of the companions of the Prophet passed by some people staying at a place where there was water, and one of those people had been stung by a scorpion. A man from those staying near the water came and said to the companions of the Prophet, "Is there anyone among you who can do ruqya as near the water there is a person who has been stung by a scorpion?" So one of the Prophet's companions went to him and recited Surat al-Fatiha for a sheep as his feast. The patient got cured, and the man brought the sheep to his companions, who disliked that and said, "You have taken wages for reciting Allah's book." When they arrived at Medina, they said, "O Allah's Messenger, this person has taken wages for reciting Allah's book." On that, Allah's Messenger said, "You are most entitled to take wages for doing a ruqya with Allah's book." Chapter 35. Ruqya for an evil eye. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet ordered me or somebody else to do ruqya if there was danger from an evil eye. Narrated Salama that the Prophet saw in her house a girl whose face had a black spot. He said, "She is under the effect of an evil eye, so treat her with a ruqya." Chapter 36. The effect of an evil eye is a fact. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "The effect of an evil eye is a fact," and he prohibited tattooing. Chapter 37. To treat a snake bite or a scorpion sting with a ruqya. Narrated Al-Aswad. I asked Aisha about treating poisonous stings, a snake bite or a scorpion sting, with a ruqya. She said, "The Prophet allowed the treatment of poisonous sting with ruqya." Chapter 38. The ruqya of the Prophet's sauce. Narrated Abdul Aziz. Thabit and I went to Anas bin Malik. Thabit said, "O Abu Hamza, I am sick." On that Anas said, "Shall I treat you with the ruqya of Allah's Messenger?" Thabit said, "Yes." Anas recited, "O Allah, the Lord of the people, the remover of trouble, please heal this patient, for you are the healer. None brings about healing but you, a healing that will leave behind no ailment." Narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to treat some of his wives by passing his right hand over the place of ailment and used to say, "O Allah, the Lord of the people, remove the trouble and heal the patient. For you are the healer, no healing is of any avail but yours, healing that will leave behind no ailment." Narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger used to treat with a ruqya saying, "O the Lord of the people, remove the trouble, the cure is in your hands, and there is none except you who can remove it, the disease." Narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to say to the patient, "In the name of Allah, the earth of our land and the saliva of some of us cure our patient." Narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger used to read in his ruqya, "In the name of Allah, the earth of our land and the saliva of some of us cure our patient, with the permission of our Lord," with a slight shower of saliva while treating with the ruqya. Chapter 39. Naft while treating with the ruqya. Narrated Abu Qatada. I heard the Prophet saying, "A good dream is from Allah, and a bad dream is from Satan. So if any one of you sees in a dream something he dislikes, when he gets up, he should blow thrice on his left side, and seek refuge with Allah from its evil, for then it will not harm him." Narrated Aisha. Whenever Allah's Messenger went to bed, he used to recite Surat al-Ikhlas, Surat al-Falaq, and Surat An-Nas, and then blow on his palms and pass them over his face and those parts of his body that his hands could reach. And when he fell ill, he used to order me to do like that for him. Narrated Abu Sa'id. A group of the companions of Allah's Messenger proceeded on a journey till they dismounted near one of the Arab tribes and requested them to entertain them as their guests, but they, the tribe people, refused to entertain them. Then the chief of that tribe was bitten by a snake or stung by a scorpion, and he was given all sorts of treatment, but all in vain. Some of them said, "Will you go to the group, those travelers who have dismounted near you, and see if one of them has something useful?" They came to them and said, "O the group, our leader has been bitten by a snake or stung by a scorpion, and we have treated him with everything but nothing benefited him. Has any one of you anything useful?" One of them replied, "Yes, by Allah, I know how to treat with a ruqya, but by Allah, we wanted you to receive us and your guests, but you refused. I will not treat your patient with a ruqya till you fix for us something as wages." Consequently, they agreed to give those travelers a flock of sheep. The man went with them, the people of the tribe, and started spitting on the bite and reciting Surat Al-Fatiha till the patient was healed and started walking as if he had not been sick. When the tribe people paid them their wages they had agreed upon, some of them, the Prophet's companions, said, "Distribute the sheep." But the one who treated with the ruqya said, "Do not do that till we go to Allah's Apostle and mention to him what has happened, and see what he will order us." So they came to Allah's Messenger and mentioned the story to him, and he said, "How do you know that Surat Al-Fatiha is a ruqya? You have done the right thing. Divide what you have got, and assign for me a share with you." Chapter 40. Passing right hand on the place of ailment while treating with a ruqya. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to treat some of his wives by passing his right hand over the place of ailment, and used to say, "O Lord of the people, remove the difficulty and bring about healing as you are the healer. There is no healing but your healing, a healing that will leave no ailment." Chapter 41. A woman may treat a man with a ruqya. Chapter 42. Whoever does not treat or get treated with a ruqya. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet during his fatal ailment used to blow on his hands and pass them over his body while reciting the Mu'awwidat, Surat An-Nas and Surat Al-Falaq. When his disease got aggravated, I used to recite them for him and blow on his hands and let him pass his hands over his body because of its blessing. Mamad asked Ibn Shihab, how did he used to do naft? He said, he used to blow on his hands and then pass them over his face. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet once came out to us and said, some nations were displayed before me. A prophet would pass in front of me with one man, and another with two men, and another with a group of people, and another with nobody with him. Then I saw a great crowd covering the horizon, and I wished that they were my followers. But it was said to me, this is Moses and his followers. Then it was said to me, look. I looked and saw a big gathering with a large number of people, covering the horizon. It was said, "Look this way and that way." So I saw a big crowd covering the horizon. Then it was said to me, "These are your followers. And among them there are 70,000 who will enter paradise without being asked about their accounts." Then the people dispersed, and the prophet did not tell who those 70,000 were. So the companions of the prophet started talking about that, and some of them said, "As regards us, we were born in the era of heathenism. But then we believed in Allah and His apostle. We think, however, that these 70,000 are our offspring." That talk reached the prophet, who said, "These 70,000 are the people who do not draw an evil omen from birds, and do not get treated by branding themselves, and do not treat with ruqya, but put their trust only in their Lord." Then Ukasha bin Musin got up and said, "O Allah's Messenger, am I one of those 70,000? The Prophet said, "Yes." Then another person got up and said, "Am I one of them?" The Prophet said, "Ukasha has anticipated you." Chapter 43. At tiara, drawing an evil omen from birds, etc. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger said, "There is neither adwa, no contagious disease is conveyed to others without Allah's permission, nor tiara, but an evil omen may be in a woman, a house, or an animal." Narrated Abu Huraira. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, "There is no tiara, and the best omen is the fall." They asked, "What is the fall?" He said, "A good word that one of you hears and takes as a good omen." Chapter 44. Al-Fal, good omen. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "There is no tiara, and the best omen is the fall." Somebody said, "What is the fall, O Allah's Messenger?" He said, "A good word that one of you hears and takes as a good omen." Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, "No adwa, no contagious disease is conveyed to others without Allah's permission, nor tiara, but I like the good fall, the good word." Chapter 45. No Hama. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "There is no adwa, nor tiara, nor hama, nor safar." Chapter 46. Foretellers. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger gave his verdict about two ladies of the Hudhayl tribe who had fought each other, and one of them had hit the other with a stone. The stone hit her abdomen, and as she was pregnant. The blow killed the child in her womb. They both filed their case with the Prophet, and he judged that the blood money for what was in her womb was a slave or a female slave. The guardian of the lady who was fined said, "O Allah's Messenger, shall I be fined for a creature that has neither drunk nor eaten, neither spoke nor cried? A case like that should be nullified." On that the Prophet said, "This is one of the brothers of soothsayers." Narrated Abu Huraira. Two ladies had a fight, and one of them hit the other with a stone on the abdomen and caused her to abort. The Prophet judged that the victim be given either a slave or a female slave as blood money. Narrated Ibn Shihab. Sa'id bin al-Musayyab said, Allah's Messenger judged that in case of child killed in the womb of its mother, The offender should give the mother a slave or a female slave in recompense. The offender said, "How can I be fined for killing one who neither ate nor drank, neither spoke nor cried? A case like that should be denied." On that, Allah's Messenger said, "He is one of the brothers of the foretellers." Narrated Abu Masud. The Prophet forbade the utilization of the price of a dog, the earnings of prostitute, and the earnings of a foreteller. Narrated Aisha. Some people asked Allah's Messenger about the foretellers. He said, "They are nothing." They said, "O Allah's Messenger, sometimes they tell us of a thing which turns out to be true." Allah's Messenger said, "A jinn snatches that true word and pours it into the ears of his friend, the foreteller, as one puts something into a bottle. The foreteller then mixes with that word 100 lies." Chapter 47. Magic. Narrated Aisha. A man called Labid bin al-Asam from the tribe of Bani Saraik worked magic on Allah's Messenger till Allah's Messenger started imagining that he had done a thing that he had not really done. One day or one night he was with us. He invoked Allah and invoked for a long period and then said, "O Aisha, do you know that Allah has instructed me concerning the matter I have asked him about? 2 men came to me, and one of them sat near my head, and the other near my feet. One of them said to his companion, 'What is the disease of this man?' The other replied, 'He is under the effect of magic.' The first one asked, 'Who has worked the magic on him?' The other replied, 'Labid bin al-Asam.' The first one asked, 'What material did he use?' The other replied, 'A comb, and the hair stuck to it, and the skin of pollen of a male date palm.' The first one asked, 'Where is that?' The other replied, 'That is in the well of Darwan.' So Allah's Messenger, along with some of his companions, went there and came back saying, 'O Aisha, the color of its water is like the infusion of henna leaves. The tops of the date palm trees near it are like the heads of the devils.' I asked, 'O Allah's Messenger, why did you not show it to the people?' He said, 'Since Allah cured me, I dislike to let evil spread among the people.' Then he ordered that the well be filled up with earth. Chapter 48. Shirk and witchcraft are from the mubiqat, great destructive sins. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, "Avoid the mubiqat, i.e. shirk and witchcraft." Chapter 49. Should a bewitched person be treated? Narrated Aisha. Magic was worked on Allah's Messenger, so that he used to think that he had sexual relations with his wives, while he actually had not. Sufyan said, "That is the hardest kind of magic, as it has such an effect." Then one day he said, "O Aisha, do you know that Allah has instructed me concerning the matter I asked him about? 2 men came to me, and one of them sat near my head, and the other sat near my feet. The one near my head asked the other, 'What is wrong with this man?' The latter replied, 'There is under the effect of magic.' The first one asked, 'Who has worked magic on him?' The other replied, 'Labid bin al-Asam, a man from Bani Suraik, who was an ally of the Jews and was a hypocrite.' The first one asked, 'What material did he use?' The other replied, 'A comb, and the hair stuck to it.' The first one asked, 'Where is that?' The other replied, 'In a skin of pollen of a male date palm tree kept under a stone in the well of Darwan.' So the Prophet went to that well and took out those things and said, 'That was the well which was shown to me in a dream. Its water looked like the infusion of henna leaves, and its date palm trees looked like the heads of devils. The prophet added, "Then that thing was taken out." I said to the prophet, "Why do you not treat yourself with Nasra?" He said, "Allah has cured me. I dislike to let evil spread among my people." Chapter 50. Witchcraft. Narrated Aisha. Magic was worked on Allah's messenger so that he began to imagine that he had done something although he had not. One day, while he was with me, he invoked Allah and invoked for a long period and then said, "O Aisha, do you know that Allah has instructed me regarding the matter I asked him about?" I asked, "What is that, O Allah's messenger?" He said, "Two men came to me. One of them sat near my head and the other sat near my feet. One of them asked his companion, 'What is the disease of this man?' The other replied, 'He is under the effect of magic.' The first one asked, 'Who has worked magic on him?' The other replied, 'Labid bin Assam, a Jew from the tribes of Bani Suraik.' The first one asked, 'With what has it been done?' The other replied, 'With a comb, and the hair stuck to it, and a skin of the pollen of a male date palm tree.' The first one asked, 'Where is it?' The other replied, 'In the well of Darwan.' Then the Prophet went along with some of his companions to that well, and looked at that, and there were date palms near to it. Then he returned to me and said, 'By Allah, the water of that well was red like the infusion of henna leaves, and its date palms were like the heads of devils.' I said, 'O Allah's messenger, did you take those materials out of the pollen skin?' He said, 'No. As for me, Allah has healed me and cured me, and I was afraid that by showing that to the people, I would spread evil among them when he ordered that the well be filled up with earth, and it was filled up with earth." Chapter 51. Some eloquent speech is as effective as magic. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Two men came from the east and addressed the people, who wondered at their eloquent speeches. On that Allah's messenger said, "Some eloquent speech is as effective as magic." Chapter 52. The use of ajwa dates as medicine for magic. Narrated Saud. The Prophet said, "If somebody takes some ajwa dates every morning, he will not be affected by poison or magic on that day till night." Another narrator said 7 dates. Narrated Saud. I heard Allah's messenger saying, if somebody takes 7 ajwa dates in the morning, neither magic nor poison will hurt him that day. Chapter 53. No Hama. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "No adwa, yet no contagious disease is conveyed to others without Allah's permission, nor any evil omen in the month of Safar, nor Hama." A Bedouin said, "O Allah's messenger, what about the camels, which when on the sand desert look like deers, but when a mangy camel mixes with them, they all get infected with mange?" On that Allah's apostle said, "Then who conveyed the mange disease to the first mangy camel?" Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's messenger said, "The cattle, sheep, cows, camels, etc. suffering from a disease should not be mixed up with healthy cattle," or said, "Do not put a patient with a healthy person as a precaution." Chapter 54. No adwa, no contagious disease is conveyed without Allah's permission. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's messenger said, "There is neither adwa nor tiara, and an evil omen is only in 3, a horse, a woman, and a house." Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's messenger said, No Adwa, Abu Huraira also said, the Prophet said, the cattle suffering from a disease should not be mixed up with healthy cattle, or said, do not put a patient with a healthy person as a precaution. Abu Huraira also said, Allah's Messenger said, no Adwa. A Bedouin got up and said, don't you see how camels on the sand look like deer, but when a mangy camel mixes with them, they all get infected with mange? On that the Prophet said, then who conveyed the mange disease to the first camel? Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, no Adwa nor tiara, but I like fal. They said, what is the fal? He said, a good word. Chapter 55. The poison given to the Prophet sauce. Narrated Abu Huraira. When Kaaba was conquered, Allah's Messenger was presented with a poisoned roasted sheep. Allah's Apostle said, collect for me all the Jews present in this area. When they were gathered, Allah's Apostle said to them, I am going to ask you about something. Will you tell me the truth? They replied, yes, O Abul Qasim. Allah's Messenger said to them, who is your father? They said, our father is so and so. Allah's Messenger said, you have told a lie, for your father is so and so. They said, no doubt, you have said the truth and done the correct thing. He again said to them, if I ask you about something, will you tell me the truth? They replied, yes, O Abul Qasim. And if we should tell a lie, you will know it, as you have known it regarding our father. Allah's messenger then asked, who are the people of the hellfire? They replied, we will remain in the hellfire for a while, and then you, Muslims, will replace us in it. Allah's Messenger said to them, you will abide in it with ignominy. By Allah, we shall never replace you in it at all. Then he asked them again, if I ask you something, will you tell me the truth? They replied, yes. He asked, have you put the poison in this roasted sheep? They replied, yes. He asked, what made you do that? They replied, we intended to learn if you were a liar, in which case we would be relieved from you, and if you were a prophet, then it would not harm you. Chapter 56. The taking of poison and treating with it. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, whoever purposely throws himself from a mountain and kills himself will be in the hellfire, falling down into it and abiding therein perpetually, forever. And whoever drinks poison and kills himself with it, he will be carrying his poison in his hand and drinking it in the hellfire, wherein he will abide eternally forever. And whoever kills himself with an iron weapon will be carrying that weapon in his hand and stabbing his abdomen with it in the hellfire, wherein he will abide eternally forever. Narrated Saad. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, whoever takes 7 ajwa dates in the morning will not be affected by magic or poison on that day. Chapter 57. The milk of she-asses. Narrated Abu Talaba al-Kushani. The Prophet forbade the eating of wild animals having fangs. As-Suri said, I did not hear this narration except when I went to Sham. Al-Layth said, narrated Yunus, I asked Ibn Shihab, may we perform the ablution with the milk of she-asses or drink it, or drink the bile of wild animals or urine of camels? He replied, the Muslims used to treat themselves with that and did not see any harm in it. As for the milk of she-asses, we have learnt that Allah's Messenger forbade the eating of their meat. But we have not received any information whether drinking of their milk is allowed or forbidden. As for the bile of wild animals, Ibn Shihab said, Abu Idris al-Kawlani told me that Allah's Messenger forbade the eating of the flesh of every wild beast having fangs. Chapter 58. If a housefly falls in a utensil. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger said, "If a fly falls in the vessel of any of you, let him dip all of it into the vessel and then throw it away, for in one of its wings there is a disease, and in the other there is healing antidote for it, yet the treatment for that disease."